All right, today we're going to travel back in time, way back, over 5,000 years to uncover the secrets of one of the oldest board games we've ever found, Senet. What started as just a fun pastime for pharaohs and everyday people, well, it turned into a super high-stakes game for the ultimate prize, eternal life. So let's figure out how a simple grid of squares became a gateway to the afterlife.
I mean, it's a wild question, right? For us, a game is just a game. It's something fun to do. But for the ancient Egyptians, this board, with its 30 squares, became this incredibly profound spiritual tool. It was like a map for the soul's dangerous journey through the underworld. So how on earth did that happen?
To get to its sacred role, we first have to start at the beginning, when it was just a wildly popular game, something enjoyed by literally every level of Egyptian society for thousands of years.
Okay, so the name itself is our first big clue. Senet. It means passing. And this had this fantastic double meaning. On the one hand, you're literally passing your opponent's pieces on the board to get to the end. But on a much, much deeper level, it came to mean the passing of the soul from this life into the next.
You know, the lifespan of this game is just mind-blowing. We're talking more than 3,000 years. We see the first bits and pieces of it around 3500 BCE. That's before the first pharaohs. By the New Kingdom, it's a full-on religious item, and it only really disappears when the Romans show up. This wasn't just a fad. This game was a cultural bedrock that outlasted entire empires.
In its early days, Senet was basically the ancient Egyptian version of game night. You look at these old tomb paintings and you see officials just chilling, playing against each other. Sometimes they even have musicians in the background setting the mood. It was social, it was strategic, but that's all it was.
And I mean, everyone played this game. If you were rich, you had these gorgeous, fancy game boxes made out of ebony and ivory. But if you were a regular person, no problem. You just scratch the grid right into the stone floor, archaeologists call these graffito boards, and you'd play with little pebbles or bits of pottery. The game was everywhere. And if you want proof of how important this was to the powerful, look no further than King Tut. He was buried with 5 different incredibly fancy Senet sets, 5 of them. For a king who died so young, that tells you everything. This wasn't just a casual hobby. It was essential gear for a pharaoh's life and their afterlife. So for hundreds, even thousands of years, Senet was a game played between people. But then, around the time of the New Kingdom, something profound starts to shift. The game begins to change from a social pastime into a deeply spiritual ritual. A game where you weren't just playing your friend, you were playing against fate itself.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Here's a typical picture from the Old Kingdom. You've got 2 people, they're alive, they're having fun playing a game. It's simple, it's social, it's just for fun.
Now, let's jump forward hundreds of years. This is a famous painting from Queen Nefertari's tomb. She's sitting at the Senet board. But look, the chair across from her is empty. She's playing all by herself, against some unseen opponent. This is the big shift. The game is no longer a social event. It's a solitary battle against the forces of the underworld. And that right there, that's the whole story. What used to be a fun, public activity became a private, sacred ritual. Suddenly, winning wasn't about bragging rights anymore. It was about proving to the gods that you were worthy, that you could navigate the divine challenges and earn your own resurrection.
And how do we know this? Well, the game actually starts showing up in the most important religious text they had, the Book of the Dead. This book was literally a guide for the soul, a collection of spells to get you through the underworld. And right there, in chapter 17, it talks about playing Senet as something that will help the dead. Playing the game became a part of the religious ceremony.
Yeah, the board itself literally became a map of that journey. Those last few squares all had these deep symbolic meanings. If you landed on square 27, the House of Water, oh, that was a total disaster. A huge spiritual setback that sent your soul way back. But if you could successfully get to square 26, the House of Happiness, and move through those final gates, well, you'd passed the test and earned your spot in paradise. So the big question is, how did they actually play this divine game? Well, here's the catch. We've never found a complete official rulebook. What we have are reconstructions, really educated guesses from experts based on ancient texts and the symbols they found carved on the boards themselves. So let's look at how we think it worked. So they didn't have dice like we do. Instead, they used 4 little 2-sided sticks.
You'd throw them down, and you'd count how many of the white sides landed facing up. That number was how many spaces you moved. It's a pretty simple system, right? But for them, it wasn't just random chance. It was the gods guiding your hand.
And what's super clever is the math behind it. You can see the most common throws get you a move of 2 or 3 squares. Getting those big, game-changing moves of 4 or 5, which also gave you an extra turn, was really rare. This meant the game favored slow, steady progress. It was a game of patience, which seems pretty fitting for a journey that's supposed to last in eternity, huh? And just to make it even harder, those special squares at the end had some killer rules. Every single one of your pieces had to land exactly on the House of Happiness. You mess up and land on that water square, boom, you're thrown all the way back to the House of Rebirth. And to finally get your pieces off the board, you had to roll the exact number needed for each of the last 3 squares. It was a tough, unforgiving journey.
Okay, so what happened to Senet? After this incredible 3,000-year run, it did eventually fade away. But its story doesn't just end. Its influence, its spirit, lived on, evolving into something we can still see today.
So first thing to know is that Senet wasn't the only game in town. Its main rival was another ancient hit, the royal game of from Mesopotamia. They were so popular together that rich Egyptians would often have these beautiful game boxes made with Senet on one side, and when you flipped it over, you had the royal game of on the other. It was basically the ancient world's first travel game combo pack. But here is where it gets really interesting. While Senet's rules are all based on our best guesses, we know the exact rules for the royal game of and it's all thanks to this one little clay tablet, barely the size of your phone, that a curator at the British Museum managed to translate, and boom, it was the entire rulebook. One lucky break solved mystery, while Senet's secrets are still a puzzle. But the ghost of Senet is still with us. Historians are pretty sure that its basic ideas, racing your pieces to the end, blocking your opponent, morphed into a Roman game called duodecim scripta. And that Roman game is a direct ancestor of modern backgammon. So next time you play backgammon, just remember, you're part of an unbroken chain of gameplay that stretches back 5,000 years.
And all this kind of leaves us with one last big question. The Egyptians took a simple board game and poured all of their deepest hopes and fears about life and death into it. It really makes you wonder, if archaeologists 3,000 years from now dug up our games, our video games, our board games, what would they think it all meant? What would they think we were playing for?